So they say every individual and every organization has a soul and some form of spirituality. While some are weak, others, on the contrary, seek a strong and powerful commitment towards achieving convergence between the soul, the science, and the vision. For me, the soul is the most important of these three. For science and vision have no purpose or sense of direction if there is no soul. The soul can become the power or the source of our inspiration, our passion, our principles, and our values. With this power, we can develop the tools to transform ourselves, to reinvent our ways, and to redefine our culture, our vision, and our leadership capabilities. As a result, the opportunities for us to realize our full potential and to push our boundaries beyond imagination should become just like a religion, a discipline, a way of life for everyday circumstances, our operating platforms, and our future challenges. If you recall, Thomas Jefferson once said, "Every generation needs a new revolution." Well, today, Puerto Rico is at the dawn of this new revolution, a new era, facing potential opportunities in aerospace and cyberspace. Both of these spaces can revolutionize our economy and spur growth and prosperity, not just to our society, but to the region as well. The good news is that due to our political and social circumstances, we may be the only people in all Latin America with this opportunity. So I dare to say, before we begin this panel, let us seize this moment. Let us do it now. So with that in mind, good morning. I am Archie LeBron. I am here representing the board of directors of the Puerto Rico Manufacturers Association, as well as the Internet Society chapter of Puerto Rico. I thank you, Armando and Cluster, for having me. I am truly privileged to be here in front of you to share this panel with some very distinguished panelists and professionals, which, by the way, having seen the watch, we have a very big panel composed of 6 panelists. Let me begin by introducing our first panelist. First of all, let me bring my panelists to the floor, so please welcome. I have some very long bios here, so I'll try to be brief with them. Let me start with Dr. Chase Cunningham. Dr. Chase, he's a director of cyber threat research and innovation for Armor, Inc. Dr. Cunningham, who is Chief Petty Officer retired, is tasked with proactively seeking out cyber threat tactics and technical indicators of various threat groups, targets, and tactics. He is medically retired from the U.S. Navy, and his time in the military was spent in direct operational support of U.S. intelligence operations abroad. Regularly cited as an expert on many aspects of cybersecurity, regularly contributes to white papers and other publications. He is EC Council certified security analyst, a licensed penetration tester. He's worked for CIA, FBI, Naval Intelligence, and the list goes on and on. So if I continue, I'll be here for the next hour and a half. So welcome, Dr. Chase. Next, we have a good friend, Dr. Audi Curbelo. She's an independent consultant for cybersecurity firm called Digitech. She specializes in information security and computer forensics. In addition, she has taught courses in disciplines of information systems, computer engineering for private and public universities for the last 17 years. Her consulting firm in cybersecurity provides training and consulting services to customers, including information technology, financial, healthcare, She has been awarded several occasions with a numerous amount of international awards. The International Information System Security Certifications Consortium awarded Dr. Cabello with distinctions of up-and-coming information security professional and with the Community Service Star Award for the Project Cybersecurity Awareness Campaign for Teens in Puerto Rico. She holds a PhD in Community Resource Development with majoring in Information Technology and Distance Education from Ohio State University. Please welcome Dr. We also have Antonio Sosa Pascual, known by many of us here in this room. Antonio founded REOF Capital to create economic opportunities for investors, clients, and communities. In his role, as managing director, he creates deal flow, makes investments, manages clients, investor relations while building institutional capacity. He focuses in 4 key areas: financial analytics, online platforms, energy, and real estate. In 2005, he began his career in private equity at Advent International Affiliate. From 2005 to 2008, he consulted for global corporate venturing funds with Professor Josh Lerner from Harvard Business School. He graduated with an MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management, where he was awarded the University Scholarship. He holds a BA from the University of Chicago, diploma from London School of Economics, Political Science, and an MPP from the University of Michigan. He has been awarded the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship for Public Policy and International Affairs. Please welcome Antonio Sosa. Our next panelist is Mr. Juan Camacho Diaz. Mr. Camacho is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, with an honorable discharge, and a former trustee of the University of Puerto Rico. He possesses a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Puerto Rico Bayamon campus and a graduate certificate from the Sloan School of Management at the MIT Institute. As a security professional, Mr. Camacho holds a certificate of Certified Ethical Hacker and ISO 27002 certifications. He is currently Chief Technology Officer of Dynamic Network Enterprises, Department of Defense contractor located in Virginia and Puerto Rico, and his duties, he oversees a product development component located in Puerto Rico under D&E Labs. As an inventor, Mr. Camacho has submitted patents in the area of secure transactional engineering and security-related technology. Please welcome Mr. Juan Camacho. We have Mr. Descoy Sanchez, an old friend of mine, who today leads Evertech's information security and operational risk management areas. Prior to joining Evertech in December 2014, Mr. Sanchez served as Principal Information Security and Technology Advisor and Assistant Secretary of Information Technology for the Puerto Rico Treasury Department. Mr. Sanchez is an information technology executive with over 25 years experience and has expertise in areas of risk management, information security, network security, application security, all the security monitoring and incident response, cyber forensic, operational security. During his professional career, he has worked for Raytheon, IBM, E4Net, located in the United States and in Puerto Rico. He has worked for Sapiens, RNG, Scotiabank, and the Treasury Department. He has a bachelor's degree electrical engineering from the Maya West campus, and he has taken graduate courses in communications, computer communications, digital communications, and programming languages. Please welcome Descoy Sanchez. Finally, but not least, we have Cristian Gonzalez, who is the CEO and founder of Wovenware. Since 2003, Wovenware is the software development partner to mid-market companies that need to solve business problems through technology solutions. Wovenware recognized that companies often seek simple technology solutions but needed strategic advice on how to create these solutions and deliver value to organizations. Today, with more than 30 employees, who are mostly engineers and computer scientists, they've been recognized with the Inc. magazine's 5,000 list as one of the fastest growing private companies in the US, exporting 35% of services in 6 cities, including US and Dominican Republic. He's a member of the board of directors of the Puerto Rico. Actually, he is the president of the Puerto Rico Information Technology Cluster. He has a degree in computer engineering from IOS and a Juris Doctor from the University of Puerto Rico. Please welcome Cristian Gonzalez. What we're going to do is kind of like the following. We're going to have Dr. Chase Cunningham set the tone for our panelists. He's going to do an overview of where we're at. The topic of our panel, as mentioned previously, will be cyber communication and security in aviation, how to secure airlines, information in the ground and in the air. We're dealing with aerospace and cybersecurity. Dr. Cunningham will, through his presentation, establish an overview of where we're at, where it's heading, and then we'll have panelists respond to that and present their perspectives as well. So, Dr. Chase, please.
As soon as we get the PowerPoint cooking. So thank you very much for having me today. Again, I am Chase Cunningham. I'm the Director of Cyber Threat Research and Innovation at Armor. If you're not familiar with Armor, basically what we do is we have best in the world security capability within the cloud space. So for us, we can have your information, your infrastructure hosted at AWS, Azure, your own private cloud, and things like that. We can drop our security stack on top of it and actually protect that infrastructure, or you can host it with us directly and we can take care of that infrastructure for you. We handle all the compliance and everything else along those lines. So it's I'll show you some of the stats, which are pretty staggering if you really think about the security space and why you would want to have your information held in a secure environment. I won't go through my bio again because he was more than generous enough and no one is really looking to hear all that. So when we talk about the numbers in cyberspace, it's really interesting to see what's actually going on within the threat environment. That's my primary focus. I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not out there creating websites, I'm not out there creating databases, things like that. I pride myself on being a threat hunter. I was a threat, if you will. Some people would tell you I still am a threat. But really what we try and do is we try and hunt the bad guys in the internet. So I spend a lot of my time working with my team, looking at zero-day type events, looking at malware threats, looking at how the bad guys are actually targeting environments and stealing information. And we like to take their tactics, flip them on its head, and use that to protect those environments. So our goal, our sole focus within my group is to stay ahead of the threat. If you look at the numbers within cyberspace itself, they really don't lie. We're talking about over 60% of organizations are really concerned about data and cyber threats. Honestly, I think if you would go a little bit deeper and ask their board, it's probably around 99.99%. 61% is pretty generous. 70% are worried about cloud mobile security. Everyone now is moving towards the cloud in one way, shape, or form. Whether or not you realize it or whether or not you feel like participating in the migration to cloud, you are. If you're connected to an environment, if you're leveraging another vendor's infrastructure, or if you're doing business and leveraging the internet, which I'm pretty sure everyone here is, you are involved in migrating to the cloud. Everybody in here that's using your personal device, whether or not you're getting on and pulling stuff from Google Drive, or you're sharing information across different cloud infrastructures, absolutely you are moving to the cloud. 80% of them are very concerned about the security skills gap. If you think about what's actually going on in the security industry as a whole, it's the single largest gap for people to fill the jobs that we've seen in industry. We're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 jobs in the US alone this year that will go unfilled. In the next few years, it's probably going to be closer to 1 million worldwide. There are not people that are specific cyber operations folks that are trained, educated, and practiced to move into those roles. So there's a huge gap in that area. We'll talk about why that's actually a very good thing towards the end of this. Average data breach in the US is costing about $6.5 million. I'll actually show you how much an estimate is per record of the data that's stolen within these different environments. It's really staggering. Last year was the year of 1 billion data records stolen. Not 1 million, 1 billion plus data records were stolen last year. Unless you were no longer living on the planet or under a rock, every week you basically heard about someone else getting hacked, more information being stolen. Data is the currency within the cyber threat environment. If you're talking about mobile malware, if anyone in here is using an Android device, if you really go look at how you can put apps on the Android marketplace, that's a really, really good spot for people to drop really nasty pieces of malware because it can be written, it can be off, and it can be up and running in a few days. The last estimate I saw that said that up to 40% of the apps that are in some of those different marketplaces are actually malware. So that means really almost half of the apps that you would download have some form of malicious code in it. Pretty staggering. And if you're talking about tools, and this is solely in the security space, you're looking at over 85 different tools from over 40 different vendors. So how do you know which one is really the best to use for your particular environment, your particular cases? If you combine all those together, you see that we have sort of a perfect storm of insecurity within the cybersecurity industry. When you talk about the bad guys, the guys that are actually out there doing the nasty things on the internet, those folks that are causing the compromises, they don't really bother changing things. If you look from 2013 to 2014, they pretty much targeted the same infrastructure. They know where they can go to get the information that they can sell in the underground. They really, really like finance and healthcare, finance and insurance because those records sell. If you look at what a credit card sells for in the cyber underground, if you've got a platinum card and somebody steals that information, it'll sell from anywhere from $15 to $50, depending on how much limit you have in your credit rating. If you have one of those really nice black cards, you know, the ones that you can buy an airplane with, those will go for $500,000 on the underground. If they go off and steal 1,000 credit cards, they might sell for $1 a piece, or 10,000 or 100,000. The more that they steal, the lower the price usually goes, but they sell them in bulk. And they'll sell them to anybody that's willing to buy it. If you're looking at insurance information, if you think about how much information your insurance company knows about you, think about how much somebody can use that information for within a criminal enterprise, right? There are kids right now that are becoming 18 years old that are going and saying and applying for a college loan, and they're finding out that somebody has had a house in their name for the last 5 years because their information was stolen because it was on their parents' insurance information. This is exactly the type of nefarious activity that I deal with on a daily basis. Manufacturing is coming down a little bit. Retail and wholesale, of course, is going up. And healthcare is staying pretty standard. The interesting thing, though, is if you're looking at what is actually the highest valued information within cyber underground operations, it's healthcare. One stolen healthcare record will sell for anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 per record. Because again, if you think about all the information that your healthcare provider knows about you as a person, you can literally recreate an individual using that information. You can go off and buy all kinds of fun things with somebody else's money and somebody else's information. Unfortunately, it's still getting worse. We are not getting any better as an industry at actually defending the cyber threat environment. If you go back to this first slide, and you're looking at 85 tools from 45 different vendors, unfortunately, the numbers tell us that it's really not making that much of a difference. It's because there's a lack of information sharing, there's a lack of individuals to fill those roles, and the onslaught that's coming is getting ever greater. We used to have a primary concern with areas in the former Soviet Union where they were stealing credit card information, and they are very, very good at it. Well, recently we started to see the emergence of Chinese cybercrime that's doing the same things that the Russian folks are. They figured out that the Russian criminal organizations were making billions of dollars a year selling stolen credit card information. These Chinese individuals were trained by the Chinese government to do those type of hacking activities, and now they don't have a job. Guess what? They wind up setting an organization infrastructure up that does the same thing that the Russian criminal groups do. So now you have two different entities targeting the same environment, steal that same information. They actually literally compete with each other in the underground. We're talking about 91 million different events, and these are the events that we actually know about. So multiply this probably by a factor of 10 if you're talking about what's actually targeted environments and that has probably caused compromises. Also, if you're looking at the incident to attack ratio, which is how many times we actually said that this was just an incident and how many times this was an attack, it's going up. They're not having to do quite as much operationally to target environments now. Because they have so much information from all those stolen data points, their attacks are getting much more targeted, much more specific, and much more successful. It's going up, which is bad for everybody in this room. There is a little bit of change, but it's still bad for us overall. I'm not trying to be the harbinger of doom. I do have some good stuff to tell you in a second. But really, when you're looking at it, malicious code, the guys that are writing malware, that's actually going down. The interesting reason for that is because there are marketplaces in the underground that sell those pieces of malware for individuals. The guys that write really good malware, they just sell it. They're not the ones actually hacking and targeting your environments. They're actually out there acting as brokers. I've got a good piece of malware. I know that it can get you 5,000 records for every credit card environment you target. It's going to cost you 500 bucks. They'll sell it. They're not going to go off and write something new when it continues to work. If you're looking at unauthorized access as well as probes and scans, unauthorized access is going up. That's probably because we've gotten a little bit better at identifying strange things occurring within environments. But probes and scans are going down, which also indicates that these guys know more about what they're going after and they're getting better at targeting those environments and getting much better results. It used to be where almost the number one thing you would see was probes and scans because they spent days and weeks and years trying to figure out how they could get into networks. Now, because of the benefits of those underground forums where they're sharing that really good malicious code, they don't have to go do that anymore. They can scan, find a target, go after it, exploit it, and be on that system very, very quickly with little concern. Suspicious activity remains the same. Access and credentials abuse remains the same, and denial of service has gone up slightly. Interestingly enough, denial of service, which is bringing the website or system down to its knees, used to be a primary concern for companies. Really, nowadays, you can mitigate that with a tool or a technique. But the bad guys have also figured out that a lot of times in certain environments, when they DOS a system, when they bring it to its knees, it'll come back up in a pristine state, and then they can just go after the machine from the pristine state. They don't have to worry about the security that's actually in place. This is a much more dynamic, much more changing environment than it was even 18 months ago. Technology is exponential. The threat in cyberspace is exponential on top of that exponential. These guys move very, very quickly, they're very good, very targeted, and they've been doing this. This is their business. This is how they make their money. Last year alone, just for credit card theft within former Soviet bloc countries, you're looking at about $6 billion worth of money stolen. Billion, not million. And that's in one area of the world where they've gotten really good at credit card information. Data is absolutely king in those underground environments. This is what they're going after. Last year, again, was the year of 1 billion records stolen. Honestly, it was probably 1 billion plus another 500 million. There was a few instances where they got close to 1 billion records off of one system. How many of them are redundant, we don't know, but healthcare records selling for about 400 bucks a pop. And this is all based on the number of records, so of course that's a proportional line. $215 per record, $165 for retail. Industrial records are going for $155, but you notice that really the stuff that you would think would be of value, that was of value, is going down. They're not really that concerned with public information anymore. It doesn't matter. Anybody can get that anywhere. If you know how to go query for it, you know how to go hunt for it, you can go find public information right now about everybody that you ever want to. Technology is going up a little bit, but that's really concerning itself with stealing proprietary technology types of information. If your company has a specific patent that you're getting ready to submit, a specific technology that you've invented, a specific tool or technique that you use that gives you a leg up on the competition, that information is also being sold in the underground if they can get access to it. Energy, nobody's really bothering too much with stealing energy information right now, and consumer information is going down pretty exponentially. That used to be one of the highest values within the threat underground, but they have too much of it. They literally have gotten more data records for consumers right now than they know what to do with. So that value is actually pushing itself down. Honestly, you could create a cyber threat underground stock market and watch this stuff move up and down as it's being exchanged in real time. The pain is absolutely measurable. If you've been reading the news and paying attention to what's going on there, everything is actually becoming more painful. Global average for per record is up almost 12%. And again, this is what we know. There's a lot of companies that have breaches, that have compromises, that are exploited, that don't bother sharing this information with others. So the reality of that is these numbers are only as accurate as the data with which we've been provided. This is, again, probably at least a decimal point below what it should be. That's probably a $1,500 type record increase. If you're looking at overall, you're looking at a 23% increase simply in the nature of the amount of data, the cost that it's costing a company. And this is not even including remediation. This is simply the value of the data that's stolen. When you start adding in remediation, when you have to call in man-hands, or call in Dell SecureWorks, or call in somebody to come fix that system, you can start adding in costs pretty quickly to how much of this value is actually going to grow up. And the targets are still there. If you look around right now and think about all the different technologies that are coming to bear, I love to hear people talking about IoT, Internet of Things. We're here for aerospace. Aerospace is absolutely a huge target for the underground for cyber operations. If you're thinking about healthcare and medical information, medical devices, you can have wirelessly enabled morphine pumps right now. There's actually been guys that have shown that they can easily change the amount of dosage that you get on a morphine pump. Not something you want to have happen. It's out there. The targets continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The talent is not there. The fact that there are so many different organizations that will do what we call the checkbox method. They go off and they go through the PCI compliance standards and they say, I'm PCI compliant. I have done what the government said. I am super awesome at security now. No longer will the bad guys ever be able to target my environment, and they get ripped. It happens that fast. I say this every time I get a chance to speak. Compliance does not equal security. Security is a living life cycle. It is a breathing thing. It is something that you must care and feed. If you don't, you will wind up being one of those folks that's in the data breach system. And then, of course, if you talk about dwell time, which is how long it takes for the industry or for the enterprise or for the entity to say, we've had an issue, we've had somebody target our systems and get onto an endpoint, average dwell time across the industry is over 205 days. That means that bad guys are in the network doing what they want to do with assets that are in your environment for over 6 months. And that's before you actually say we have a problem. That's not even including how long it takes to remediate, get that system back up and move forward. Here's where we get into a little bit of the good news. And this is also where I believe there's a lot of good stuff for Puerto Rico to be involved in. If you are involved in cybersecurity in any way, shape, or form, or if you are interested in growing things within cybersecurity, which I think that I think there's a huge possibility for growth within Puerto Rico itself, there are really, really good areas to get involved in. Thanks to all that bad, there's a lot of good that can be done. Cybersecurity is becoming centralized. It's not where it used to be, where you had folks that were just security people. You actually have organizations now that are dedicating someone to be CISO, CEO, CIO, cybersecurity operations officer. That is becoming centralized. That's a great possibility for organizations to get involved in and say, we have people that know this game, we have people that are hardcore cyber folks, we can offer you that capability, that expertise. There's also a real growth in measuring the metrics. If you're involved in a company or an organization or group that has the capability to numerically and value-based understand the type of data that's going on within these breaches, within these compromises, within the data that the bad guys are actually going after, there's an entire business capability right there. This is actually growing pretty large within the industry in the States because people want to do risk analytics. They want to know what their likely compromise points are. They want to know how bad it will be if it gets compromised. They want to be able to assign a specific value to those assets within their infrastructure so they actually know what to protect. Measuring and assigning risk is also a part of that hot market. Breach analytics is growing exponentially. There are entire accelerators and startups that are coming out right now that are focused on nothing other than breach analytics. Companies that are looking at it and saying and understanding that the mindset now within the cybersecurity industry is not, are you compromised, but you are compromised. Let's figure out how bad it is, assign a value to that information, and actually help you protect the information which is of the most concern. There's massive, massive areas for investment and growth in there as well. And then analytics, interoperability, and device security are the next big market. Everyone will tell you, if you go read about IoT, IoT is the next $3 trillion market. Well, the good thing is, for those of us that are interested in cybersecurity and interested in security, period, is that all those IoT devices are going to need some type of security. So if it's a $4 trillion market, that means there's basically about $1 trillion worth of growth right there just in IoT security. You don't have to be a security ninja either to be very good at securing IoT devices. A thermostat that talks on IoT doesn't do anything but controls the thermostat. You don't need 10 years of cybersecurity practice and ethics and expertise to figure out how to secure a device that takes care of the thermostat in a room, or make sure that an elevator goes from the bottom floor to the top. If you know how to secure something, you can easily build a capability that can be leveraged there. With that, I like to keep things moving quickly because we've got a whole bunch of really esteemed folks here. So as we get to the next stage, please, if you have questions, please throw them my way.
Thanks. Pretty awesome presentation and information. I'm sure the audience has a bunch of questions already. To start off, I have a very quick question. We do like a hackathon at least once every month. Are we doing the right thing and creating hackers out there?
Hopefully yours are better than theirs.
Well, I'd like to bring Dr. Kubel. She's a professor in cybersecurity, and she's Puerto Rican, and she's been exposing a lot of consulting in that practice. I'd like to see what she has to say based on your presentation.
Thank you. I think I have a presentation right there. But after when Chase presents, I just go home, turn off my internet, and move to the mountains, okay? Yeah. No, that's not mine. Well, they find my presentation a little bit about myself. I never realized how fun it is when I graduated from my PhD in information security that every day I will be paid to install information. And it's funny because every time that I go to business and they sign a contract with me, they give me the opportunity to prove how vulnerable they are. And every time that I go, and every business says, "Oh, we have the fancy toys, we have the Fort Knox security here." 100% of the time, I get into either to the network, either through the email, or just in the physical entrance. I remember one time there was this guy saying that they have the fortress there, and he challenged me that I cannot get into the facilities. So one day I came up with the idea that I wanted to get into the facility, so I changed my clothes and looking like normal civilians. And then in a time of rush around 11:45, and if you are Puerto Rican, you know that's the time to go to lunch in a public agency or any other enterprise. So I go in the peak of the day, there was a guy, security guy, in front of the elevator, which is give you access to the facilities. And after 2 days, we were watching the facility, we noticed that at 11:45, everybody just go crowded the lobby area. So that's my access. So I went to this company, and it's been a pleasure to be a woman too, because man, I'm very easy to fool sometimes. Sorry guys. And then I went to the building around 11:45, a bunch of people, bypassed the guardian who was there, get into the elevator, enter the number of the floor that I wanted to go in, and everybody there was using one of these proximity cards, you know? Then I get to the floor that I want to go in, but there was a lot of doors, and there was one guy, and I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I left my card inside of my office. I'm working here as a consultant, And he said, oh, take mine, because I'm gonna go to lunch, and you probably need mine. So he gave me his, and I used his card to get into every single place of the building. Then I sit in his office, in one of the manager office, and he opened the computer, he left the computer open. So I go into the computer, plug my USB, install a small bit that I have in my USB, which is a malicious code, and I have access to their all records, okay? Then I sit there waiting for 2 hours for the lunch finish. And the guy who challenged me, see me there and say, what you do here? I said, would you challenge me? And I'm here. And this is that I compromise because the physical security here is not what you say, okay? Just as an introduction, what we do for life. But now, from the other perspective, I have another hat. I'm a professor too. Professor at different universities, private and public. And one of the challenges that I want to present here is the challenge that academia have when teaching cybersecurity. The first time that I decided to teach cybersecurity in one of the universities in Mayagüez, I teach in Mayagüez, University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, I got this idea to teach hacking. But at the time that I thought that I started teaching, it was, you only can teach defensive. Defensive is the part that you teach ethical hacking. But I wanted to push my student to do more. So I went to my dean and proposed, you know what, I wanted to teach at least 12 credit in cybersecurity. I want to teach them how to hack. And when I said that to her, she said, no. You cannot teach hacking. So why not? Because hacking is bad. And I said, well, but there's ethical hacking. I mean, if you put the word ethic in front of hacking, it doesn't look that bad, no? So one of the challenges first is that academic instructors are not well aligned with the need of the industry. Chase presents a big panorama. There's a threat outside. And universities are living in denial. Denial means that students know that it's outside are threats. And they are training by Mr. Google how to do it. But the lack of ethics. So one of the challenges in our industry is to combine their tools, Mr. Google tools, ethics tools, to bring up a workforce, ethical workforce, that can work from the offensive and defensive side, but the good guys, not the bad guys. And the only way that you can teach a guy or person how to protect any enterprise is to learn and to think as a hacker. I do have a paper that said teaching hacking like a hacker, but protecting as a Jedi. So you need to balance those forces, you know? The second threat, or the second challenge, I would say, is that teaching cybersecurity is very difficult in itself. For example, we have a lack of infrastructure. Every time that I need to teach a course on how to hack wireless, I need to create an environment. Because I need to separate my courses, my environment from my courses, from the infrastructure of the university that I'm teaching. And that costs money. So what I did is, because I found out that the university doesn't have the fund, is to establish partnerships with private industry and private sector who provide me access to different technologies. For example, I do have an agreement with, for example, Amazon. They give me the opportunity to use their cloud to create a different environment for my student. So every time that I go to teach us a class, for example, defensive network, I have to use a cloud environment and create a virtual environment to separate the university network. Now, every time that I go to teach this class, it's funny because the dean always calls me when something happened at the university network. They call me up and say, Audi, are you doing something with our network? Are you students doing something, some kind of phishing? Because we have a lot of phishing emails. And I say, no, this is part of what happened in a non-organization. The second challenge is, as I mentioned before, what to teach, offensive or defensive? You know, I simplify that. I teach both. Teach both. I have to confess that I have a lot of fun with the offensive part. Yeah. The second thing is, or the third one, I just lost count, is now that there is outside a lot of industry related to malware. I don't know if you're aware, but malware is a billionaire companies right now. I mean, it's a billion industry creating and promoting malware as a service. So guess what? I had the crazy idea last year to create a malware lab in my lab. And then I raised a lot of eyebrows to say, malware. So we are gonna teach how to write malicious code in this institution. And I say, yes, this is what I want to do. And why? Because outside, there is a lot of industry of bad guys creating malware. But we need guys to understand what are they designing so we can create a method to identify those malwares. As sounds like crazy, we need to have those tools in our campus. But again, the challenge is lack of funding. Oh, there is my presentation. Okay. Well, I'll just go through that very easy. I'm just going to present here that in terms of cybersecurity, we have a lack of talent. We have an opportunity from the academia to start preparing people to have those skills. I like a comment from the previous panel. They were looking about people that instead of waiting for graduation in college, let's start from K to 12. And I got this crazy idea too. I have so many crazy ideas. And I said, why we don't go to the schools, public school, private school, and start talking about cybersecurity? What do you think about that, guy? I'm just going to put a couple questions here, a couple concerns so we can start a discussion. The federal government said or stated the cybersecurity workforce is inadequate. Why? Because they have a high demand of those skills workers, but they are not preparing in the university. Cybersecurity market suffers a severe workforce shortage. And another shortage of the workforce. This is a couple news. And now, in this presentation, I'm going to take a wide look about the top security skills and what are the average salaries. Can you take a look at that? The average is $200,000 a year. I used to just to start studying cybersecurity right now. I talked a little bit about those challenges already, but after I talk about this challenge, I wanted to address how we can solve these problems. There is a NIST. NIST is the National Initiative for Cybersecurity in Education, which are part of that committee. And I had the opportunity to participate in the development of the board the framework that they have. One of the objectives of NIST is to provide the framework that universities can use in their programs to, in every curriculum, teach at least one course related to cybersecurity. It doesn't matter what your fields are. For example, if you study psychology, or you study science, or you study biology, at least one course about cybersecurity. And you say, what was the idea if I'm studying history or I'm studying social science? Why do I need to know about cybersecurity? Because it doesn't matter what you study today, in your life, you're gonna confront with some cybersecurity issue in your industry. So teaching at least one course in every single curriculum, at least we have an awareness about what cybersecurity is about. This is the 365 map of cyber education, and I want you to take a look at that. Here is Puerto Rico. Those are a map that put every university and school from K to 12 that are teaching cybersecurity in the programs. Puerto Rico is not there. We have several courses, we have a few initiatives, but we need to do further. We need to do more. What I propose is, and that's why I'm here, is that in order to challenge, in order to address those challenges that academia have, we need to establish partner with private sector as you and public sector as the government. We need to work together. That's the only way. When I say private, I say vendor, manufacturers, they have those products. Give us the opportunity to try that. Give us the opportunity to train our students in your facilities and have those partnerships. This is the time that we don't need to think about, well, university have no resources, the partners, private and public always been separate. This is a time in history that we need to unite our efforts. Open the door of different business to lead universities to be part of you guys. My goal is that for the next year, if this event occurs next year, we have some good news, that we have a few corporations that work joint with University of Puerto Rico or any university that is here to help to develop curriculum and to help to develop programs to address the cybersecurity issue and to provide different students to the different levels, to different programs, the abilities to identify those threats. It doesn't matter if you study information security, information system, business or engineer, or science, you need to at least to address the issue that you have some problem with cybersecurity in your business. I hope that raised a little bit of concern here, and later in the discussion, we talk a little bit more about this topic. Thank you for having me here this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Cubello. With further delay, let's bring up Podium for his presentation.
Presentation ready? I'm going to be very brief, but I just want to give you a little bit of a sense of what's going on in terms of the investment trends in cybersecurity. Our firm is free of capital. We have two areas, which one is transaction advisory services, basically helping companies that in the merger and acquisition space, and also some general advisory as well regarding financial issues. And finally, we also build investment products. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because we're basically been working for some time now trying to build an investment product to offer to investors in Puerto Rico to invest in technology companies. Some of them based in Puerto Rico, some of them in the mainland. So one of the nice things about looking at the investment trends is because it gives you a window to the future, and that's what's so exciting about this, about it for me at least, is because you know, especially if you're not 100%, let's say, familiar with these topics, and you're trying to figure out how your firm, your business, you know, your profession fits into this whole space of cybersecurity. But one of the ways of looking at it is, okay, so where are venture capital firms putting their money? And basically, you can think about, look at that, and then look, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, and then those are the industries that are basically being built in the U.S., particularly in the technology sector. So just to give you an example of the magnitude of the size of the money that is coming to this industry in so basically last year alone there were $2.5 billion of investment going into cybersecurity, what we call startups. Okay, but the startups can be at different levels. It could be seed and early stage, it could be other stages. But just to give you an idea and see how it's growing, like 4 years ago, it's basically, you know, less than $1 billion, and this year alone it's already 1.2. And also, you can look at the amount of deals to get a sense of the type of, you know, the amount of transactions that are going through and the amount of companies. Now, you can't really see this too well, but it's basically the dollar share in terms of financing. We have another slide which is not here, that talks about the deals, and it's a little different because there's more deals on the seed and angel stage versus the blue line at the bottom. But of course, in terms of the amount of dollars it represents, it's much less, of course, because it's smaller amounts of money. But if you also look at the levels of different series, you see how it's going all the way to Series E, and also, you know, look at Series A, see how much money is being put in there, and I think it's pretty incredible to see this. And also, just to give you a sense of who are the leading investors in cybersecurity, some of you may know Intel. Well, a lot of these big corporate technology companies and many other global companies have something called corporate venturing, which is basically venture programs within the company. And in the case of Intel, it's the leading investor. Some of you may have heard of Clayton Perkins as well. Anderson Horowitz is one of the leading software investors in the San Francisco area. And actually, they invested in a company that one of my friends is COO. And I remember him starting in that company a couple years ago, and I had no idea what he was doing. And I think they had no idea what they were doing either. But nowadays, they're called identity management, which is basically managing passwords. And then you see also the diversity. You have some of the older firms like Sequoia putting money, and some of the older corporate venture pros like Google Ventures. But then you also see some names here that some of you may not recognize. And most of the ones that you don't recognize, that means they're specialists. They're investors, specialists in software only. And some of you that know a little bit about this area may recognize some of these firms. So these are what we would call most well-funded cybersecurity startups. What does that mean? It means these firms are giving the venture firms are giving these startups a bunch of money. And being well-funded means you have a lot of venture money in your bank accounts so that you can grow fast, you can scale, you can build new products and capture markets. And here you see good technology in number 1 and 4, and that means it's because Visto acquired good technology. But you know, the interesting thing here is about the top, I would say the top 4 firms here, maybe probably the top 4, are basically focused on mobile security. You know, handheld devices and mobile management security issues, which also tells you a little bit, gives you an idea where things are moving. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, people, of course, using their cell phones for everything, but it also has to do with people using their cell phones to make bank transactions and any other type of transactions that have to be protected. Then you also have, in this case, Okta, which is where my friend is, and also you have other companies like Alarm.com, which is more like basically just general security, individual people's and business security, you know, alarms in houses and things like that. And then Ping Identity, which is also identity management. So that's what we have for now. I'm more happy to join the discussion a little later.
Thank you. We're running a little late. I've been told we have about 15 minutes. I think what we need to do is enter into the last 3 panelists with their remarks. There's a lot been said already. What I'd like to hear from you guys is your remarks about what's going on, maybe some local circumstances, then I'd like to run into some questions for the audience. I'm sure there will be a few questions on it. So, Raymond?
Okay. I will do this presentation, I think, in a heartbeat. So, okay, first of all, let's think of this. We are physical, we are spiritual, but now we are digital. So think on that. What happened if all of your information get lost? Your social, you don't exist. Do we really exist? This is kind of a philosophical question, but it's becoming a reality. Okay, concept of complexity of information assurance and digital identity. Simple, 1 minute. This is the nightmare of almost every organization. What is information assurance? You hear it like a buzzword, like a punchline, but what is it really? Let's put this in 5 simple steps. Number 1, you do a risk assessment or a security assessment. Someone comes to the door and tells you what are your problems. 2, you design a solution with your team, with your consultants, okay? Then, you implement the solution, taking into consideration all of the risk factors. Then, train your people. I have seen many organizations doing a great solution, but then forgetting about training and awareness of their personnel. And finally, monitor and response. Incident response, I am very tough on that. Incident response is key, okay? And then, continue the cycle once again. Next slide. Okay. Now let's follow this with common sense. Typically when you go into an organization or you want to make sure that you are you, let's say for example a driver's license, okay? What they are requiring. You need to first secure credential. Is registration, you provide information. That information should be able to be background checked, verified. Once you get verified, you finalize with a credential. That credential can be a password, an access control to a door, a token, a digital signature, okay? So once you get that, you have your digital identity or physical identity that recognizes you to a third party. Now, identity management is how you manage your identity in multiple systems, okay? But following this secure process. Now, you have heard probably about what is federation identity management. It's how, for example, how many passwords each one of you have to remember or manage if you go to your office, if you go to your Facebook, all of that. Typically, federation, depending on the context that is used, is how you manage your identity through multiple systems. I can do a whole different conference just on that, okay? And OAuth, for example, an authorization protocol that I don't know if you on Facebook receive, hey, this application wants to know your name, your last name. That's OAuth. That's that instead of you putting your credentials again, we are open system, it shares the information with the third party. Okay, now, digital signatures and certification authorities, your digital ID. A lot of people believe that digital signatures is an ink that you just put and scan the document and send it. No, digital signatures is a mathematical representation. It's a function that, simple words, you put a file, and that file creates a unique signature once it's passed from a mathematical process. And, okay? So, now you got certification authority. Certification authorities is, you take the process from upstairs that says registration and verification, and they give you this signature, okay? And a certification authority digitally signs a certificate that says your public information, and it says, I am the certification authority, and I am making sure that URA is URA, okay? So you use your digital identity now for many purposes. Now you say, okay, how do you use a digital identity? How do you want to make sure that when you implement a digital identity, that person is that person? Then we go to a concept called authentication. So how do you make sure that you are you? Okay, we got a triangle of authentication that is what I know, that is a password. What do I have? That can be your cell phone. And who I am, which is biometrics, typically, okay? So biometrics is when you put your fingerprint, when you put your face, and like you see in the movies, they take pictures of your fingerprint and they make sure that you are you. What is called multiple factor authentication is that out of that triangle, you take 2 out of the 3, or the 3, so you have more ways to make sure that that person is doing that transaction. I will skip some of the subject. Okay, now, the complexity of implementing an information assurance infrastructure, okay? You got private sector, government, and academia. Now, government have a huge issue, because it's not only making the regulations, okay? But you're talking about public policy. You need to have your senators, everyone doing public policy. You got the regulations, you got presidential acts, homeland security mandates. Also, you need the legal framework. You need the court system to be ready to take those cases and manage them properly. I've seen so many cases that the legal system were failing, managing evidence or things like that, because digital evidence is a strict process, the same as physical. But they don't have the measures. So a good lawyer, you may have a cybercrime, but if they don't know how to follow the evidence and they don't know how to put it to work properly, that guy will go. Okay? So that is something very important. In the area of academia, I totally agree with Audi and Chase. I mean, we need to embrace cyber security. But there is no concept with the Marine Corps. Every Marine is a rifleman. We must do the same thing in academia. In academia, we should embrace it. So the students at a young age will learn about cybersecurity, its responsibilities, and the social responsibility of it. It's like, for example, it's like when teaching sex to kids. Do you want them to learn in the street, or do you want them to learn through a proper, in their home, in the proper channels? So this is almost the same. And academia needs to innovate their internal structure and their bureaucracy to faster degrees. I mean, typically, when I was a trustee, it took 4 to 5 years to have a new bachelor degree. Technology works 3 times faster than that, okay? And now, DOD has a regulation called 8570, which helps, and I promote that academia can take a look at this. All the certifications that are ethical hacker, CISSP, and how those certifications go tag along with their cyber professionals. So we need academia to be more involved. And as entrepreneurs or private companies, then I learned compliance typically costs money, and compliance is not all. Okay, compliance is just a part of it. We need to have more strategic alliances. We need to have an ecosystem that can put together everything: academia, private sector, and government. And when you think all of this complexity jumps in one single state, let's think about international. We're talking about international treaties like Trans-Pacific, Transatlantic. When you put now, and this will hit the aerospace industry, because they will be managing information from customers that are international. So those privacies, laws, mergers and acquisitions, economic policies, they will hit that market. And not only that, all the cybersecurity and compliance from one country versus another country, you're going to start to see very interesting type of transactions and vulnerabilities and many things. So I think that's it. I try to be the quickest I could. Thank you.
Please go on.
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Yes. If there's any something that I would like to convey to you, I'm going to be brief, is that what should matter? Why should the subject of cyber be of importance to the aviation industry? And the simpler answer to that is because of the exposure that the aviation industry has right now, and that exposure is increasing. Dr. Chase explained in his presentation all the threats that are out there. Those threats are increasing, especially in the aviation industry. Before, a lot of the communication between the systems was point to point. Now everything is changing to Internet Protocol, IP addressing. What that means is that it puts all the systems that are used in aviation, includes airplanes, traffic air control, all that, it makes them connected to a network and addressable so it can be reached. Before that was much more difficult, now that is changing. I recently read that the FAA is changing to a next generation air traffic transportation system. They call it NextGen. That is all IP-based, Internet Protocol based. I heard that about 36% of the air traffic control is now connected. So what can we do about it? Obviously, we need to find ways to defend ourselves. There are different ways to do that, different methods. There are frameworks out there that can help industries like the aviation industry to learn or address the issue of cybersecurity. One of them is a NIST framework for cybersecurity protection. And briefly, I mean, the thing is that protecting assets in cybersecurity is not just to place a firewall and you're protected. Okay, there are a lot of misconceptions about that. Say, well, okay, I mean, I'm protected, I have a firewall. But it's much more than that. And that includes issues about how you identify your threats, how you identify your risks, how you measure that, and how you develop controls that are going to counter those threats. You need to know who are your threat actors, who are after you, and what are the things that are targeting. The aviation industry is special in the sense that, or different than the financial sector, in a way that the people that could be targeting the aviation industry are not necessarily looking for financial gain or money, they might be looking for other things. And the safety of the people that are traveling across the nation it's important to protect. So the target could be different. So you need to know that. You need to have people that analyze that, do some threat modeling and threat analysis to find out how use that for your risk assessment to find out the controls that you're going to put in place to protect your systems. I mean, and that, as I said, everything is interconnected. You need to think about all that. You need to think how to not only to protect yourself and put in controls that can protect yourself. You need to find ways, make sure that you are able to put detective controls that can detect that you're being attacked, so you can respond quickly. And lastly, you need to also think about your ability of how you can recover. When something happens, how you're going to go back to the state that you need to be. So all of those things have to be thought about. It's not just about putting a firewall or turning on antivirus. You need to think about all those things holistically.
Thank you, Ms. Coide. And before we close our discussion, I'd like some final comments from Mr.
Well, I understand that I'm the only thing between lunch and so I'm trying to be as brief as possible. I come from a software development perspective. That's what I do, and that's what I understand. And software is the apparent target of most cyber security. Software in general, I mean, it's so broad, right? And it's usually because of a lack of quality or because of a lack of controls to development environments. And in this era where you don't know, I mean, you know who probably built the device, but you don't know who wrote the software that runs in it. There's so many risks attached to that. And we're not talking only about, there's so many layers of possible attacks and so many targets. You have application level attacks where you have malware, you have code modifications, you have different network attacks and operating system attacks where you unleash a worm or Trojan and you do a DOS attack and a denial of service attack. But it goes, I mean, you need a layered approach to address your security concerns. You need to protect your systems and your assets, especially your data, in a very thoughtful, layered approach. I mean, you have to start with your physical security. I mean, if you have an open board where someone can just sit down and plug in, you might think that having a password on your system is sufficient enough, but I'm going to do a port scan. I'm going to figure out what's the best route for me to hack into your system. So you have to make sure you secure everything. So putting this in some aerospace perspective, there's an example of something that happened a couple of months ago. There's a research analyst, famous now, for a tweet he made, because he figured out a way, and he says he did this in a controlled environment. He says he didn't do it in an in-flight environment, but he just connected to an undersea device that from there on the plane you can access the in-flight system. From the in-flight system he started sniffing the whole network on the plane. And from sniffing that, he grabbed access to the thrust system of the plane. And using a default username and password, he could have access to the steering of the plane. So there were so many opportunities to control that environment. You didn't have to have access to the plane indoor communication system under the seat. You didn't have to have open usernames and passwords with the default in them. I mean, there's so many. So this is a layered approach. I just want to convey to you that you have to think security first. There's no other way to go around this. And from a software perspective, encryption, system hardening, where you just disable everything and anything that you don't need. You don't expose functionality that you don't need anyone to access. And so it's not just about firewalls, it's not just about authentication or identity management. It's not just about being ethical, because the bad guys are not, right? It's about having a complete view and having security first. So to finalize, I wanted to congratulate Dr. Red with the efforts to have this ethical and cybersecurity at school. I went to Maya West too, and in the late 90s we did offensive hacking. So that's better, so I appreciate it. So thanks to everyone for having us here.
Thank you. I want to congratulate our panelists. I also want to invite the audience if there are any questions. We have tons of questions. Maybe have 5 more minutes for questions. I'm sure someone might have a question for either of our panelists. Anyone? So is this the Universidad Politécnica? Well, we congratulate the Universidad Politécnica for having. Well, in line with what the gentleman just said, we are all, especially me, a true believer that Puerto Rico is in the need of a new business market. And we've always said, Christian and Guy from the IT sector, we've always shared this thought that this is the time for Puerto Rico to dive into the IT sector. I strongly believe that due to the nature that we are U.S. citizens, we are well positioned. I think Dr. Chase mentioned that Puerto Rico has a human capital infrastructure which is pretty competitive with the U.S. We still have work to do there, but we are strong in that area. And that is an opportunity for us to build as per a vertical industry. Already, the IT industry in Puerto Rico is over a $3 billion sector. It's bigger than the construction industry, I understand. So moving forward, one of the hopes in terms of making Puerto Rico competitive and prosperous again is in the information technology, especially information security, with the things we've heard today. And I think this is something we have to take advantage. Having said that, I believe we're just about to close our panel. Is there any final question? I know lunch is there and everyone is like, we're ready for lunch.
Well, I just want to, we had some questions, but we got delayed, but I just want to, we need to connect the cybersecurity topic to much of the aerospace topic. So, I don't know if anybody wants to make a comment a little bit of that. I did find an association, it's the aerospace, an association that combines cybersecurity and aerospace in the States. And a lot of the critical factors have to do with managing the government's role in the aerospace industry and protecting the information within that from cyber attacks. So we just don't want to lose a little bit of perspective.
Excellent. Congratulations. I also just want to thank, deeply appreciate the time from our panelists. I know it's not easy to manage a panel of 6 professionals at your level. Special gratitude to Dr. Chase Cunningham, who's come to Puerto Rico especially for this event. I look forward to seeing your collaboration, your support with the rest of the team to see how we can build upon your experiences and build throughout the industry that type of expertise. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you all for being here with us. Thank you. And then I guess we're going to be coming back as soon as possible.